You're listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. And I got to tell you something, people. You know, I was on my honeymoon just 2 weeks ago, and me and Joanne were in Dubrovnik, which is part of Croatia. And I noticed something. In Dubrovnik, there are cats everywhere. It's unbelievable. Not like, you know, here when you see a stray cat, they just take off. These are all stray cats, but they're the most friendly cats you ever see. And when you're eating outside in a restaurant, they just walk up, they hang out. I saw one cat jump on someone's table while they're eating. So my advice to you is, if you don't like cats and you're allergic, do not go to Dubrovnik, because you'll be disappointed. Anyway, we have a great show today. Gentleman's very busy. I'm glad I got him. He's about to go to Scotland. He's going to go to a film festival. He's going to start shooting a film. This guy's working his ass off, and he's been in some of my favorite films ever. And my guest is John Ashton. How you doing, John?
Hi, Cooper. How you doing?
I'm doing good today. So now we are emailing back and forth. You said you're going to Scotland. Is that for business or for pleasure?
Actually, I'm doing a Comic-Con there with Judge Rhino. They have the Edinburgh Comic-Con October 12th and 13th, and Judge and I are going over there and sign some autographs and meet some fans and have some fun.
Now, have you done a lot of these Comic-Cons, or is this one of your first?
No, I've only done a couple of them. You know, they're pretty weird, but they're fun. You know, I did one in London a couple years ago. I did one in Stuttgart, Germany. Let's see, where else? I did one back in Providence, Rhode Island. I did one in Colorado Springs. So I've done 4 or 5 of them. So they're fun.
It must be great. I mean, I know some people who have been on Star Trek, and they get a completely different kind of crowd. But because you've been in such good movies, I mean, Midnight Run, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Some Kind of Wonderful. You must have a different crowd that comes up to you. Probably a more humorous crowd, not the sci-fi type.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we get the movie crowd. You know. And they're really nice, you know. They've been really friendly and great, and you do see all the Darth Vader guys walking around and doing all that stuff, and that's cool too, you know. But that's a different element than we attract, you know. We attract the moviegoers, I guess they're moviegoers too, but I mean, you know, a different kind of moviegoer. So it's weird because I was in Stuttgart and I saw George Wendt there from Cheers, you know, and George is an old friend of mine, and you know, I just run into people that are old friends of mine. And actually, I was in Stuttgart and I did a movie with Dolph Lundgren in Czechoslovakia years ago. And Dolph was at the Comic-Con in Stuttgart, and I never saw him. You know, and I wanted to go say hi to him. But the one in Stuttgart had like 4 different venues, you know, in 4 different buildings. So he was in building 3 and I was in building 1 or something like that. And they were the size of airport hangars, and they were huge, and they were packed. It was just they're unbelievable, and the fans were all cool. They're all great. So I'm doing that. For the Comic-Con. And it's going to be great to go back to Edinburgh, actually, because I did theater over there years ago. I was in the USA theater tour. We toured Germany and England, and then we did 6 weeks in Edinburgh, Scotland. So I was there for 6 weeks doing theater over there. This was quite a few years ago. So I'm anxious to go back and see the city. It was beautiful when I was there, so I'm looking forward to it.
Now you've been acting for years, and you know you play a tough guy in a lot of movies. In high school, were you a tough kid? Did you play sports? What made you get into acting? Because I know you ended up going to college to Ohio, then you went to USC for School of Theater. But when did you start liking acting? And were you an athlete in high school, or was there a split?
Well, I was an athlete and a juvenile delinquent, I was. I was in trouble with the law a lot. I grew up in a rough town, you know, and we had some rough guys there. And I still keep in contact with the ones that are still alive. But you know, my life was kind of going on the wrong path, you know, and I was playing football and doing all that too, you know, and following my brother's footsteps, who was a great football player. And that's the one bad thing about being 4 years behind your brother. Every time you go in, they say, "You better be as good as your brother," you know. And and he was a great football player. And anyway, I played the sports, but I was also kind of a juvenile delinquent, getting in trouble a lot. And the director of our high school theater came up to me in the hallway and said, "Would you like to be in a play?" And I went, "Yeah, sure." So it was Oklahoma, and I did Jug Fry, and I won Best Actor, and then I got involved with the Hartford Stage Company in their premiere production of Othello, which opened the Hartford Stage Company in Connecticut. And I was just sitting in the audience like at 2 o'clock in the morning at a rehearsal, and I just looked around. I was only like 15 at the time, and I just said to myself, you know, this is what I want to do. It keeps me out of trouble. I'm off the streets. I could be out robbing a car or something. Instead, I'm sitting here and doing what I really enjoyed it. And you know, there were a lot of Yale students that were in the production, and I made up my mind then. I said, this is what I want to do. And when I could have gone to college in Connecticut somewhere, but I wanted to get as far away from every possible connection they had with so that's why I went to Ohio, and I played football there for 2 years, and then I did summer stock in Cape Cod in '68, and I was married and a 1-year-old baby at the time, and I was making $25 a week in room and board, and all of a sudden I said to myself in summer stock, and I just said, you know, I could be the greatest actor in the world, but who's going to know it in Ohio, you know? So I applied to USC, and I got accepted at the theater department there, and I didn't have any money to go, so I got a hold of them and said, look, I'd love to go, but I can't afford it. I don't have any money. And so my wife at the time was from Chicago, so we went to Chicago, and I worked on a freight house for two years there, and saved enough money to get to California, and rolled up in a U-Haul and a 1-year-old baby, or she was probably 2 at the time, and I didn't know a soul, and went to USC, and the rest is history, I guess.
Now, was it hard to get into USC because the theater department's very renowned? I know back then it probably was too, but coming from Ohio and doing some summer stock and stuff like that. Was it a hard process for you to get into USC?
Well, I got accepted there, but once I got there, it was sort of the Hollywood system, I mean, I auditioned for the first play when I got there, and I didn't get anything in it. And, and all of a sudden, the second semester I was there, they did a play called This Agony, This Triumph, which was an original play about the Sacco Vanzetti murder trials, and I got the role of Sacco. And all of a sudden, everybody came up to me and started asking me, "Hey, I heard that Bill went to Ohio to find you to do this play." And I said, "I've been here for a whole semester, man." It's like all of a sudden I was this newfound person, and I said, "I've been here for a long time, man. I auditioned for a couple of things." Anyway, I made some good friends there, and then after USC, after I graduated, I was bartending and still didn't have any money. I went to school on a student loan, and it took me years to pay that off. And I was bartending, and I got involved in a theater group up in Hollywood, the Company of Angels, and did a couple of hit plays up there, and found an agent, and started doing TV and stuff like that.
What was it like when you first started doing TV? Because, I look at your IMDb, and you were on some great shows. And, when you started doing TV, as someone who was trained in theater, what was it like, the process for you crossing over?
It was terrible. The first thing I did a play called She Stoops to Conquer, Not She Stoops to Conquer, A Flea in Her Ear at the Company of Angels. I did do She Stoops to Conquer, but that was another story. I did a play at the Company of Angels called A Flea in Her Ear, which is a Feydeau French farce, and I played Camille, and I won the Drama Critics Award. This is 1973. I won the Drama Critics Award for supporting actor. And all of a sudden, I'm bartending, and my agent called and said, "You got a meeting out at Columbia or wherever it was." So I went. It was for a police story, which was a hit show at the time. So I said, "Oh, great, here we go. My career's gonna, blah blah blah." And I had never done any television, and so I go in for the audition, and there was 2 lines playing an ambulance attendant, and. I kind of read it, and I went back and I went back to because I had to go back to work at the bar. I called my agent and I said, "I don't want to do this. It's 2 lines. They can get a wino to do this. They don't need an actor." And she said, "Well, you don't have any credits. You got to start doing this stuff and blah blah." So I ended up taking it, and doing it. And to this day, I regret doing it because for years after, a few years after that, that's all I got called to do, these little 2-line, 3-line parts. And that's the way it is in Hollywood. They kind of pigeonhole you into things. And anyway, I got a couple of breakout stuff that I did, and then got myself out of that hole. So
now, what kind of roles were you getting called for? A tough guy, a cop? What was in your early career? What were you getting called?
A lot of tough guys and cops. I did a Kojak and then I was kind of getting discouraged with the whole thing, and I was a theater trained guy, and I loved doing theater, and I still kept doing theater. Ed Harris and I did True West in '81 at the South Coast Rep, and we both won Drama Critics Awards for that. But I was doing plays still along the way, and that the process of television was really kind of depressing to me, So. But then all of a sudden, I got a Columbo, and with Dick Van Dyke was the guest star, and I was kind of the second guest star, I guess. And I just loved working with Peter. And Peter, one day they were going to shoot a scene, and I sat there all day, and they never got to the scene. So they wrapped about 7 o'clock at night, and everybody left, and then. I'm there, and I didn't work all day. And then Peter came up to me and he said, "Hey, you wanna rehearse this thing we got to do tomorrow?" And I said, "This is great. This is great." He rejuvenated my whole faith in the business. So at the end of the shoot, I went to Peter and I asked him to sign my script, and he looked at me with this kind of disbelief, and then he said, "You're a good actor. What do you want my autograph for?" And I said, "Peter, I got my own reasons, man. Trust me." And I never told him why. And to this day, I still have that script in my file. So anyway, he rejuvenated my faith in the business.
Now, why did you ask him? He said you never told you why. You never told him why. What was the reason?
Well, because I was so discouraged with the process of television, and I just wanted to get out of it, and I just, but I really was going to go back to New York because I'm from Connecticut. I was going to go back to New York to just work out of the theater, and I was just discouraged with the process, and he, the fact that he came up to me when everybody had gone home and there was nobody there, and in the dark sound stage, he wanted to rehearse the scene we were going to do the next day, and it gave me more encouragement that I guess there are some actors that work in this business.
So you're treading along, you're working, and then you end up getting a recurring role in Dallas, I believe. Did you know that would be recurring, or how did that happen?
No, I just thought it was a one-time gig, and all of a sudden they called me back for the second one, and then the third one, and the fourth one, and I ended up doing 6 of them. And, recurring character, which I didn't know. I just, the first time I went in, I just thought it was, a one-episode gig, and then, they turned it into a kind of a recurring role, which was cool, So
now,
funny enough, many years later, I did a TV series with Richie Tyson, and we were on, it was an NBC show, and we did 18 episodes. It was an hour show in 89, 90. And Brandon Tartikoff was the head of NBC at the time, and he put us on Friday night against Dallas. And Dallas was the number one show at the time. And, you know, we were a brand new show, and, you know, we were struggling in the ratings, you know, but we still got pretty good ratings, even though we were against the number one show, you know. And I said to Brandon, put us on Wednesday or Thursday, give us a shot, you know, give us a, you know, let us get an audience. And he goes, you're my best show of the season, I'm putting you in my toughest time slot. So, you know, and we did good, you know, I mean, 18 episodes, we were still in the, you know, the high, you know, low 20s, and one night they preempted us because of the World Series, and they put us on Thursday after Cheers, and we were like the number 3 show that week. So it just, you know, it just goes to show you, you know, these people that have TV series and they walk around with their heads in the clouds and they think they're so hot because they're a hit TV series. You know, I just want to go up to them and say, look, you got a good time slot. Shut up and, you know, cash the check and go home, you know?
Well, I was going to say, too, I mean, you know, back then, you know, when Dallas was on, there was only, you know, I grew up in Philadelphia, we had channel 3, 6, and 10, you know, and that's what you watched, and there was some UHF that had 17, 48, and 29, that had some sporting events and, like, the weekend schlocky movies, but so many eyes were on actors like you when you were in a TV series, because there wasn't like now where there's 800 series.
Well, yeah. Well, then, we had 4 channels, you know. We had, you know, ABC, NBC, CBS, and probably Fox or something, you know. So, I mean, you know, now there's and I remember we were shooting on location one day, excuse me, and some lady came up to me and she said, I love your show. And I said, well, thank you. She said, well, we watched Dallas, but we taped your show. And I said, why don't you tape Dallas and watch our show?
So, yeah, that's why people.
I mean, it's all numbers, man. You know, when these actors don't walk around thinking they're so hot, I just want to go, shut up, man. You know what I mean? It's all numbers, and, you know, you got a good time slot, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know what I mean?
So
you know, I'm an actor. I just want to go do my job and go play golf.
See, exactly. So you're doing your job, and now how does Beverly Hills Cop come up? And you had to know it was going to be a hit because Eddie Murphy was pretty damn big.
No way. Actually, Beverly Hills Cop, Ed Harris and I did True West on a South Coast repertory in 1981. And like I said, we both won Drama Critics Awards. And, well, a couple of years later, I get this call, and it was from a casting director and wanted to meet me. So I went in and met her, and she said, look, John, I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing in this film for you, but I saw you, and she was a New York casting director, thank God, because she went to theater. But she said, I just saw you and Ed and True West a couple of years ago, and I wanted to meet you because you were both terrific, and I loved your work, and I just wanted to meet you, that's all. But there's nothing in this film for you. And I said, okay, fine, great, you know. Then a couple of weeks later, I get a call to go audition for Beverly Hills Cop. And so I went in, and I only read this one scene, you know, the scene where I punch Eddie in the stomach, and, you know, that one little scene there. So I auditioned, and that was it. I didn't hear anything for a couple of weeks, and then I get a call back, and I go back and read the same scene. I never read the script. I had no idea what the movie was about. And I went in and read the same scene again, and they said thank you, and I left. And then I didn't hear anything for 3 or 4 weeks, and all of a sudden I go back here and read the same scene again, you know. And I'm going, well, okay, fine. And then they have these callbacks. And I go in, and there's like 50 actors in the hallway. You know, I'm going, well, you know, what's going on here? So they came up to me, and they said, okay, and they brought Judge over to me, and they said, okay, you two, and they were just pairing people up. And thank God they happened to pair Judge and I up, you know, and to go into audition. Well, I found out later. Originally, Mickey Rourke was going to do Beverly Hills Cop, and it was a drama. It was a serious film, you know, about him going to revenge on his buddy that gets killed. So it was a heavy movie, and then Mickey Rourke didn't do it, and it went to Sylvester Stallone. And then Stallone was going to make it Rocky Blows Up Beverly Hills, you know, and added it all. So, or Rambo, I should say, instead of Rocky. But, so all of a sudden, it went from a serious film to an action film to they got Eddie and made it a comedy. So now Judge comes up to me and he says, well, you know, we're reading together. I said, okay, great, you know. And he said, well, how'd you like the script? And I said, I don't know, I never read it. And he goes, you never read the script? And I said, no. So he was frantically trying to give me the rundown of the scenario and blah, blah, blah. I finally said, look, forget it. We're just going to wing it, you know. And he, like, freaked out. And so we're going and just winged it. And a lot of the ad-libs we threw in that audition, they put in the film. And then, you know, obviously I ended up getting it. And Marty Brest is, like, my favorite director. I did Midnight Run with him also, which is another story. But, so, you know, Marty would let Judge, because Taggart and Rose were very minor roles in the original script. They weren't very big roles. But Marty would shoot a scene. I mean, for instance, it would say, Taggart and Rose would wait in the car. And that's all it would say. So Marty would shoot that, and it would be Judge and me just sitting there drinking coffee, looking up at the windows and blah, blah, blah. Then he'd shoot that 3 or 4 times, and then he'd go, okay, we got that. Now you guys just play with it and have some fun. And then Judge and I would start ad-libbing, and that was all left in the movie. And then Marty just kept letting us do that. That climbing over the wall stuff was all ad-lib stuff. So Judge and I ended up creating, because of Marty, letting us do it, creating these characters that end up being co-stars of the movie. So, and that was all Marty, man. I mean, Marty's fantastic. Oh, I love him. And then Midnight Run was another story. I was at a play that Joey Pantoliano was doing, and at intermission, I ran into another actor friend of mine, and he said, well, you're doing Midnight Run, aren't you? And I said, I don't know, I haven't even read it. What's it about? So he said, oh, you're perfect for it. You got to do it. I said, well, who's doing it? He said, well, Marty Brest. And I said, you're kidding. So I got a hold of Marty, and I said, hey, Marty, I heard about this thing, Midnight Run. I mean, shouldn't I be in this? Somebody told me I should be in this. And he goes, well, yeah, you'd be great. He said, but you got to audition for it. And I go, I got an audition for you, Marty? You know? So he said, no, not for me, for Bob. Bob wants to read with everybody. So I said, that's great. So I went into the audition, and there's 30 or 40 actors out in the hallway, you know, and everybody was scared to death to go on and read with DeNiro, you know. And I was looking forward to it, you know. I was like really excited. I said, good, I got a chance to go read with an actor, you know. And it's like, instead of a casting director, you know. And I went in and ad-libbed a bunch of stuff with Bobby and stuff, and which I found out later. I walked out of the room, and Bob said, I want him. So, and Bob was a like fan of mine because, you know, Cop 1 and 2 were out, blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, so that was how that happened. So.
Well, now, after Beverly Hills Cop, when it became a big hit, how did it change your life? You probably got recognized a lot, and I guess because your character is very gruff, I'm sure some people probably thought you were like that in real life. How did your life change when that became a hit movie?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, we couldn't go anywhere, obviously. I mean, I remember I went back to New York to do Good Morning America with Judge, and I was with my wife at the time, and we went into New York, and that was after the first one, and you know, I didn't make all that much money, you know, but I mean, everybody, I mean, I couldn't walk down the street in New York. It was like unbelievable, you know, and I was like freaking out going, wow, I guess this movie's really popular, you know. I mean, I didn't know, you know. So Judge and I did Good Morning America, and I'll never forget, I was on Joan London, and we did the interview. Judge came up to me and goes, what do we talk about? And I said, the Judge is their show, not ours. We'll just answer the questions they ask us, you know. So he said, I guess you're right. So anyway, at the end of the interview, at the end of the thing on Good Morning America, she says, well, John, not bad for your first time out, huh? like I was just fell off the turnip truck or something. I looked at her and I said, yeah, I'm a 22-year overnight success. It's like, it's unbelievable. Like,
now, what was it like doing scenes with Eddie? Was he very serious? Was he a very serious actor, or was he a cut-up because he did have the background of comedy?
No, Eddie's pretty serious about it. I mean, once the camera's on, he's funny. But, I mean, he really, he comes to the set with a purpose, He doesn't screw around too much. He really doesn't. But he's a pro, man. I mean, he changed a lot of scenes, and stuff. And no, he's serious about what he does. He's a funny dude, man. He's a very, very creative guy. And it was great to work with him, and just to be able to bounce off of him, and we had lib stuff, and he'd bounce back, and it was really a pleasure. It really was.
Well, as an actor, we had talked about Midnight Run, and you were excited to read with De Niro, and for me, I mean, Charles Grodin cracks me up. I remember when he'd be on the Tonight Show, and he'd just always act like a jerk, and some people thought he was. And then I saw him in interviews, and I read his book, and it was a very good read, his first book. What was it like acting with those two? Because you have to feel like you've really stepped up to the big leagues because they're trained actors. You're a trained actor. Did you get intimidated when you started doing scenes with them, or did it just come naturally because of your background?
It was pretty natural for me. I mean, I felt very comfortable with Bobby and Chuck. I mean, and we got along great. And I'll never forget the scene where in Midnight Run where I pull up in the car with the shotgun and two bad guys got him in the alleyway there and all that. I don't know if you remember that scene, but I'd pull up in the car and blow my shotgun out and get out, and, knock the two bad guys out and grab them and all that stuff. Well, it's another great Marty thing, that we got to the set, and I said, Marty, what do you want me to do here? And he said, well, just kind of hide the shotgun by your leg and walk across the street and find them in the alley. And I said, Marty, that's boring. I said, well, I want to pull up in the car and blow the shotgun out. And he goes, oh, great idea. So they spent like 4 hours building this ramp for the car, doing all this stuff. And anyway, so we do the first take, and I pull up, I blow the shotgun out, I come out, and the bad guy says, oh, you're in trouble. And I said, yeah, speak into the microphone, and I knock him out. And then I go over to Bobby and stuff, and then my buddy yells, cut, and then Chuck goes, the new Ward Bond. Which was a real compliment to me. I said, well, thanks, Chuck. That was great. So, and he's Grodin's pretty much what you see what you get, I mean, he's got a dry sense of humor, and we were on the film for 6 months. I mean, we started shooting in New York and worked our way across the country the way that the script was, and so we got to be pretty close and pretty much family after 6 months of working together.
Now, as you're working, you're in these 2 hit movies. Are you still auditioning, or are people offering you parts at this point?
Well, mainly, I get offers, but there are times when they call and they want me to audition. I go, for what? No, go watch a movie. Unless it's a real big major thing, then I'll go audition for it. But right now, I'm doing a lot of independent films, which I really, really enjoy, because it's sort of getting me back to my roots and working with these young, creative kids, and it's kind of like doing a play, It's just, I have a movie out now on the festival circuit, and I just got back from Boston, actually, at the film festival there, a movie called Once Upon a River, and I loved the script, and I loved that character I played, a character like you've never seen me do, but characters I've done on stage before, but never had the opportunity to do on film. I play a hermit that lives on the river who takes in this runaway girl, and it's taken from a book by Joe Campbell, Once Upon a River, and I'm really proud of the movie, and it's running around the circus now at those festivals, and I'm just getting ready. I did a movie a couple of years ago called Uncle John, an independent film with Ronnie Gene Blevins, and he's doing a film in Texas now called Death in Texas. So I'm going to go down there and work with Ronnie on that, and so I'm really independent films for me right now are the way to go. I mean, I love doing them. I love being around that atmosphere, that creative atmosphere, and and getting away from kind of the Hollywood stuff.
Well, when you do these
not that I have anything, somebody wants me to go to Hollywood and do something that I really want to do, but I'm at the point in my life now that I want to do what I want to do. I don't feel like I have to prove anything to anybody.
Well, you don't. I mean, you look at your career. Like, okay, you also were in one of my favorite John Hughes movies, Some Kind of Wonderful. And, anyone who's a young director knows John Hughes' work. So they must be like, holy crap, we have someone who was in one of his movies. How did that come about? How did Some Kind of Wonderful come about? Did you get offered that, or did you have to audition?
I think I got offered that. That is true. And actually, John wrote it and produced it, and Howie Deutsch directed it. And John wrote and produced and was directing She's Having a Baby with Kevin Bacon in Chicago while we were shooting Some Kind of Wonderful. And John wanted me to be in She's Having a Baby to play Kevin's neighbor in that. And that was shooting at the same time we were shooting Some Kind of Wonderful. So I was actually flying back and forth from L.A. to Chicago on two John Hughes movies at the same time, but one was being directed by Howie Deutsch, and John was directing the other one. And I got to Chicago, and we got a bunch of rain, and we got behind schedule, and then Howie was yelling that he needed me back in L.A., and it was kind of funny. And John was the producer and wrote both of them, so he was the boss. So I said, John, you tell me where to go, and I'll go there. You're the boss, so wherever you want me. And so anyway, I did both of those at the same time, and I love John Hughes too, and rest his soul. And he was a terrific guy, and I got along great with John. And then he called me after that, and I did a cameo for him in Curly Sue. I did a one-day. He called me and he said, "Would you fly to Chicago and just do this one-day cameo?" And I said, "Sure." So I did that for him too. So he was a terrific guy and was a big loss.
Now, when Beverly Hills Cop wrapped, did you know there would be a sequel, or was that something that you got hit with later that he said there's going to be a sequel?
What was that?
When Beverly Hills Cop wrapped, the first one, did you know there would be a sequel? Or when were you told there'd be a Beverly Hills Cop 2?
Not for a while. After the first one came out, they kept trying to do a TV series of it. And Judge and I said, no, we don't want to do a series. And I wasn't interested in doing a series because, my film career was doing pretty good. And I said, no, and Judge didn't want to do one. And then all of a sudden the movie came up, and and actually I was shooting down in North Carolina a film when they called me for Cop 2, and then I found out later, talking to Jerry Bruckheimer and everything, what their original idea was. After the first one was so successful, they wanted to take them all over the world. And they wanted to do Beverly Hills Cop all over the world, like in London and Tokyo, and that was their original idea after the first one was so successful. But they stayed in L.A. for the second one, and obviously I didn't do the third one. So anyway,
so as you were going through after that, you're doing movies. And then you start doing TV. Was it harder to get work? Were you getting pigeonholed as a certain character, and were you feeling a little stifled as an actor, doing somewhat of the same kind of roles?
Well, the thing is, after Cop was so successful, and that's just Hollywood for you, I got offered all these cop roles, it was just one after another, and I said, I just did that. I don't want to do that again. I was a character actor. I was a stage actor. I did a lot of different things on stage. I was doing Tennessee Williams and Inge, and I was doing all these really great plays, you know, and all of a sudden that's what they want you to do. Oh, you're good at that, so that's what you do, and that's not what I do. I do a lot of different things. That's why I'm so having so much fun doing these independent films, because I'm getting a chance to do the things I did on stage, you know. So, you know, then somebody asked me one day, "Oh, you play a lot of cops, you know?" And I finally just said, "Look, I don't play occupations. I play characters, all right?" And actually, the Death in Texas, which I'm going to do, I'm playing a cop, but he's a great character, you know, and I don't care that he's a cop, and it's a cool character, you know. So, like I say, I don't play occupations, I play characters, all right?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And the thing is, though, it must have been somewhat frustrating for you when you were getting all the same roles of offers, because you are trained. You've done True West with Ed Harris. You know, you're a trained actor. Did you start getting a little discouraged about the business at any time?
Oh, absolutely. I turned so many of those down, you know, and I just said, I don't want to do. And that's why when Midnight Run came up, I jumped on it, you know, because it was a bounty hunter. I was different, you know. It was so different than Taggart, you know, that's why I wanted to do it so badly, and thank God it came out successfully. But you know, I'm a character actor. I want to play different things. I don't want to play, you know. It baffles me. And I had friends I used to play golf with that were on soap operas, and I said, man, I don't know how you do that, man, because that drive me nuts. Doing the same thing for 20 years, it drive me up the wall. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
Now,
you know, all of a sudden, I'm getting needled into these cop rules. I go, I don't want to do that, man. It's like.
Now, did it hurt your career because you turned these roles down? Did all of a sudden start people saying he's not playing a cop, we're not going to offer him?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could have made a lot more money. You know, I could have done all that stuff, and, you know, but I would do other things, you know. I'm a creative guy. I don't know. But then, you know, Robert Mitchum was a very good friend of mine, and he'd turn things down, and then he'd finally get bored and just go do something, you know, just because he was bored, you know. And he used to always say, yeah, we have people come up to me, they go, yeah, Bob, we know you're a terrific actor, but would you mind doing this lousy movie for us? And he said I was bored, so I did it.
So you're working, you know, you've had this good career. How did Gone Baby Gone come up? Was that something out of the blue, or was that something that you wanted to work with Affleck, or how did that come about?
That was totally out of the blue. I'm a big Dennis Lehane fan. I read all of his books, and just because I liked his writing, and I had read all of his books, and I had read Gone Baby Gone, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, I got a call from my agent that they want you to do Gone Baby Gone. Ben Affleck wants you to do it, and I said, great, man, you know. So I mean, that just totally came out of the blue, and then I got to Boston to shoot it, and the casting people came up and said, you know, you were the first one cast, and Ben insisted on you for this role, and blah, blah, blah. And luckily I got to do it. And then I said, well, who's playing my partner? And they said, Ed Harris. And I go, oh, fantastic. We're going to have a blast, you know.
What was Ben a fan, or what do you think? Why were you the first one cast?
Well, I heard a story. Unfortunately, it happened on Jiggly, but Marty Brest directed Jiggly with Ben, and Ben had come up to him on the set one day and said, "I want to be your next John Ashton." And Marty was notorious for never casting the same people twice, and he cast me in 2 movies. That's why Ben said that, because he wanted to work with Marty again, you know. So. Anyway, he was a fan of mine because of that, I guess. Because we had that association with Marty.
Now, at this time, when you're shooting Gone Baby Gone, and then you did some other TV, were you still doing theater, or did you start pulling away from theater?
Well, I just hadn't had the opportunity. I mean, I'd love to do theater again, you know, but I want to do the right thing, you know. The right play has to come up, you know. I mean, you know, unfortunately, you know, Broadway has become the Hollywood East or something, you know. You got to be a TV star to do Broadway now, you know. So what can you do? But I'd love to do it. If the right play came along, I'd love to do another big play. So.
Now, when I look at your IMDb, you didn't work for a few years. Was that a choice of yours, or is that just something like in the mid 2000s? Because I have friends who have been on a TV show, and then they were a voice in Coco, and then he couldn't get work for a year and a half, and it must be frustrating. Did you choose not to work much, or what happened? Why were you not going out for auditions, or was it because you moved to Colorado, or what happened?
Well, I moved to Colorado, which was one of the reasons, and the things I was being offered I didn't want to do. I moved to Colorado because I wanted to raise my son here. I didn't want to raise my son in L.A. And I lived at that time. I lived in a pretty nice area in L.A. And some kid got killed on waiting for his bus to go home. And it was a really nice part of L.A. And I just said, you can live in the greatest area in L.A., but 5 minutes down the hill and you're in the garbage, So I just didn't want my son to grow up there. And I had been doing a lot of, and I played one in Colorado, and I liked it here, and I liked the people, and it was right around the Rodney King riots, around 93, 92. And I'm flying from Colorado into LAX, and I'm going to look at all these burning out buildings and stuff like that. And I said, "That's it, I'm out of here." And I put my house up for sale and bought a house in Colorado. And actually, I bought the house here when I was shooting Little Big League in Minnesota. And my wife came out and found the house and bought it, and we moved here. So part of it was that reason, that Hollywood, they think if you don't live there, you live in Mars. It's just unbelievable how backward they are in such a technically profound business, and they just are so backward that way. If you don't live there, you live on Mars. It's just, and I had no problem, and Actually, they did the series. They did do it a couple years ago, Beverly Hills Cops, which never sold. And I didn't do the pilot, but the director wanted to meet me. And so he sent me the script, and I read the script, and I wasn't in it, the pilot. And Eddie was going to be in it, and Judd was in it. And the pilot was really about Eddie's son, and Eddie helping him out. But anyway. So I get on the plane, and I fly to L.A. to have this meeting, and I read the script. So I go to the meeting, and Sean says, "Well, John, if the show goes, will you be in it? Would you be in it?" And I said, "Well, I don't understand why I'm not in the pilot." And he said, "Well, John, you live in Colorado." And I looked at him, and I said, "Let me tell you something. I get up at 7 o'clock this morning. I got a 10 o'clock flight. I got here at noon. And I made the 1:30 meeting. I couldn't do that if I lived in Thousand Oaks."
I know.
and he looked at me and he goes, "You know what? You're right." So I just look at these people. I go, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Now, how did you choose Colorado? Like I lived in LA for years, and I moved back to New Jersey where I grew up, so it was an easy move. How did you choose Colorado? Because you grew up in Massachusetts, you went to school in Ohio, you lived in LA for a long time. What made Colorado special for you?
Well, like I say, I played a golf tournament here. That's how I found the town, and it had 4 seasons. It had summer, fall, winter, spring. The mountains, the Rockies are beautiful. The countryside is beautiful, and and at that time, now the town has grown like crazy. But at that time, it was a small town, and I wanted my son to have that opportunity, to grow up in a small town and not have to worry about gangs and all this other stuff, and he thanks me to this day for giving him that opportunity because he lives in L.A. now working for a video game company.
Now, you've mentioned golf.
I always tell him, I said, I worked my tail off to get you out of this.
Right.
Down in your back. He said, "Dad, I hate it too, but this is where my job is." And I said, "That's the only reason I live there."
Right. Now you've mentioned golf a few times. How long have you been golfing? And do you have a group of celebrity buddies you golf with, or who do you golf with?
played with Dennis Quaid and a lot of different people. You know, we used to have a thing called the Celebrity Golf Tour, and it was great. There was a lot of athletes, a lot of actors. It was called the GPA, Celebrity Players Tour, CPT, I mean. Actually, I started playing golf when I was bartending down near USC at bartender. Even after I graduated, I ended up managing this bar down there, and I worked from 10 to 6 at the bar, and then go and do my plays in Hollywood at 8 o'clock, and then come back and close the place after. Anyway, I was managing the place, and a lot of cops used to hang out there. And one day, one of the cops came in and said, my wife bought me some new golf clubs. Anybody want to buy these? And I said, how much you want for these? He said, give me $50. So I bought them, and they sat in my apartment, because I was single at the time. They sat in my apartment for months. And one day I was bored, had nothing to do, and I said, I'm going to grab those and go out. And I went out, and I was hooked. And so I started playing, and then there used to be a group called the Thursday Thieves out in Los Robles, where all the actors and directors and people that weren't working would play. And sorry, there's a plane going over.
That's a...
Or a helicopter, actually. But anyway, so every Thursday we get a group of 10 foursomes and stuff. And that's, by the way, that's how I found Colorado. I don't know if you remember Don Porter, the old character actor. He did Gidget, not Gidget, the little girl, Don Porter. You know, he's
right.
An old actor. Anyway, he came up to me one day and he said, hey, I'm supposed to play in this celebrity tournament in Colorado. I can't make it. Would you fill in for me? And that's how I found Colorado. I filled in for Don Porter because he couldn't make the tournament.
Now you do golf. You're living in Colorado. You're living a good life. Now you said recently you've gotten into these independent movies. How did you get back into the independent movies? Did someone seek you out and are they intimidated, or do they sit there and worry because you are a very accomplished actor? And if they're younger, are they intimidated when they pitch you a movie?
Well, it's weird, to Uncle John, which I did a couple of years ago. These guys were out of Chicago, and we shot it in Lodi, Wisconsin, actually. But and I found this out later. They found my email address somehow, and all of a sudden I got this email, and they said, would you be interested in doing this film? And they sent me the script, and I read it, and I got a hold of them. I said, I'd love to. And they didn't have any money. I mean, but I didn't care about the money. It was a great character, and I wanted to play it. So later on, I found out that they were watching Beverly Hills Cop, and they said, he'd be a really good Uncle John, And to this day, I feel, because Uncle John is a farmer out in the country and stuff like that, I said, how did you ever connect Taggart with Uncle John is beyond me? But I'm glad he did. And then this movie I have coming out now, Once Upon a River, she got a hold of my manager, and Harula Rose is directed it. She did a great job. And we shot that in Antioch, Illinois. But she got a hold of my manager, and my manager called me, and I read the script, and I said, yeah, let's do it. And, there's not a lot of money involved in these things, but that's, when I was doing theater, the Company of Angels, I paid $20 a month to work in that theater, So, I mean, I'm not concerned about that. I mean, of course, you always, it's great to go out and make a ton of money and do whatever, but money's not, my only. I'm more concerned about the character, doing the job, and doing that right. And, if the money's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not.
Now, what kind of roles are you looking forward to playing? Because the indies you can play whatever, and you said you'll play a cop if it's a character. What kind of characters do you want to play at this point in your life, and have they changed at all as you've gotten older?
Well, I want to play characters that are rounded out characters, that are like theater characters, I mean, I'm attracted to the story and the characters now, I don't care about all these blow-ups and all that stuff. I mean, that just doesn't do anything for me, you know? I want to play a character that's got some stuff going on, you know? This character I'm playing Once Upon a River is a hermit that lives on a river, but he's such a well-rounded. There's such stuff going on, and same with Uncle John. There's more going on inside of him than what he says, you know. And I'm attracted to the story. I want to do a good story with a good character, and Smoke, my character in Once Upon a River, is this old hermit. And I got Q&A at one of the festivals, and I said, I'm finally getting old enough to play the characters I played in college. Because in college I was always the character guy, you know. I was 22 years old and I'm playing, Big Daddy, you know. I always played the old character guys on stage in college. Now I'm getting to the age where I can play them for real.
Exactly. Well, before we wrap up, I got to ask you something. And, you don't always know if Wikipedia is true or not, but did you used to host a sports show for ESPN in Fort Collins?
Yeah, that's a long story and a bad one, so
okay.
I don't want to get into it.
Are you a big...
But I did. It was a popular show. I did it from 3 to 6, 5 days a week. Because these guys from ESPN that have the station, ESPN stands for Entertainment Sports Network, you know? So I said, and there's a lot of similarities between sports and the entertainment business. Obviously, look at these guys playing sports now. I mean, they're all entertainers now. These guys are making $200 million to play baseball. I mean, please. So I was trying to do a show with this other sports guy who was a football player anyway, it's a long story, but the connection between entertainment and sports, so we would do shows about that, and then during the Celebrity Players Tour, I got to know Jim McMahon's a very good friend of mine, and we just played a golf tournament a couple of weeks ago together in North Carolina, and so a lot of these guys I got to know, and so it was a good show, but it's a bad ending. So anyway.
Well, you know what? I want to thank you for coming on. As I said, Midnight Run to me, it still always makes me laugh my ass off. And Beverly Hills Cop is just a classic, because I grew up, I'm at the age where, Murphy was breaking, as we're like the same age. So it was just something. And I wish you the best of luck. And I think you're going to keep working.
Well, they're talking about Cop 4, so, I'd love to do it if it's right, Cop 3 just didn't turn out right, so that's why I didn't do it. There's a lot of other reasons why I didn't do it, but I would love to do Cop 4 and get together with Judge and Eddie again. It'd be a blast,
Well, I want to thank you again. People, go check out John Ashton. Go to his IMDb. Your website, I believe, is johnashton.com.
Right.
Go to his website. Just go look at his work. Go. You have, look at his movies. If you haven't seen Some Kind of Wonderful, go. He plays the father, a caring father. So people, check that out. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. I have over 750 episodes up there. Email me, cooper@coopertalk.net. And if you listen to me on iTunes, do me a favor, give me a 5-star review and write something nice. So anyway, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guest. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you guys next time.